Hey everybody, this is the top B slider, and I did previously review this in a slightly different form where I had two of these and the brass sandwich piece that can be put in between them, but I've never really been happy with that. So today we're going to take a look at what it took me to get satisfied with this thing, and maybe it'll give you some pointers towards making yours a little bit more satisfying. So I did the video, like I said, about the brass insert piece, which is here. I still have the other half of this partially unassembled, partially still assembled to show you what it would be like. But it just never worked for me, and I don't want to get into too many details other than I think that the brass piece is too thin to house a spring and two balls, because that's what needs to happen there in order for this to work. And I don't think there's enough material here for that. If this was even made by the original maker, which would be Top, Metal Toys DZ, or an outside party, I don't know. But if they were to make another version of this, I think it would have to be a little bit thicker. But like I said, I've gone through a long time of using these together. I don't care for it that way, and we're going to focus on the Top B as it would have come by itself. Actually, not really, because when it came to me, it came with this sort of standard insert, which gives you about 1.5 clicks in either direction. And I bought outside of that a ZZ, I believe what they call it today would be a ZZ plate, which is just a whole series of divots right next to each other. So it's a very, we'll see if you can hear it here, many small bumps. And it just outperforms this in so many ways. This insert was just very frustrating because you'd get like 1.5 clicks in either direction, and I think the thing that made it most frustrating was the half click, because you'd get there and then it would sort of go part way, not the whole way. But now, I've when I got this originally, also it only came with 4 springs and 4 balls, and none of the little brass caps that you see nowadays, with at least with Top Metal Toys products, seem to come with springs that have little brass caps that sit on top of that before you put the ball on top of the spring. And I think that makes all the difference in the world. It helps keeps everything lined up, more even pressure and everything. I just think it's a better design, better idea. This did not come with those. So essentially, I just couldn't get happy with it no matter what I did, it seemed. I didn't have any of those brass caps. The springs didn't seem to be strong enough. The balls I tried different things didn't just seem to work for me, and that led me to get the middle piece, which required buying another Top B slider and everything. But I go into more, like I said, if you want to know more about that middle piece, go back and watch the video. I may put a link to it in the comments. I never could quite get happy with it, whether it was with this insert or with the ZZ insert. This one I still don't think I could ever be quite happy with. Now that I had one ZZ insert and I'm unhappy with the brass insert piece, I decided, I really like, what really changed my mind too was well, it's the resurgence of mechanical. It's not like mechanicals are new. This was an early design, and the CP5 was an early design. We just didn't realize or care that they were mechanical. Now everything is like, hey, this doesn't have magnets in it. Ooh, cool, it's a mechanical. And it is cool. I like it. And back then, I don't think any of us appreciated mechanicals for what they are. And once I got this, now this was just a whole series of, you could see here a little bit how close those divots are together. And it makes for such a rich experience. It's hard to explain. I don't think I would have appreciated this a few years ago. But again, this led me to putting this back together with the ZZ plate and to see if I could get it going. And I did. And like I said, I'm happy with it now. Especially now that I've actually put some Teflon tape in here. Again, Teflon tape to the rescue. All these videos in the past, I was critical of Teflon tape, and shitting on it and everything, and I found yet another way to use it that brought this thing back to life. So we'll take it apart then, but essentially what I did was I have what came with this slider are the little extra brass caps, we'll call them, that go on the springs. I had 4 extras. So I put those in here with the springs that I had in here, and I believe I put 4 black ceramic nitride balls in there. We'll find out in a minute when we take it apart, but I think that's what's in there now. And those little brass caps, I think, made all the difference in the world. Gave me a lot more of a crisp reaction, and like I said, a new appreciation that I didn't have before for all these small clicks. I could start to recognize that in a way that I didn't recognize it before. But that wasn't enough. It did start to feel very sticky, and you can see what's left of the what you can see of the exposed portion here. How scratched up that is. That's just from normal wear, I believe. But either way, it has gotten to a point where if I would apply pressure to this, which I found myself doing, not just sliding it, not just trying to push it from behind like we do sometimes with some of these designs. You might push it from behind rather than apply pressure to the top of it. But with this one, I found myself wanting to squeeze it or apply pressure to it. The more I did, the harder it was to get that to go, and it actually stuck a few times. It was really getting to be an irritation, and that was right after I got it figured out that, hey, I think I can make this a way that I like it again. So tape to the rescue, and I ended up putting, I'll show you here in a second how to do this, but just a small piece here and a small piece there between the springs, and it made all the difference in the world. Okay, for those of you who might just be here to see this, I mean, maybe you're going to buy one of these and want to know more about it, we'll take it apart in a minute, but I'll just finish up by saying, I think I think you need the ZZ plate for it, which is the plate that has many more divots than this plate, which might be just called the Z plate. I think you need that, and I think you need to have the modern kit. If you buy one of these brand new, it probably comes with a set of springs with extra springs and those little brass caps that are all important, I think. And hopefully it would come with extra of those as well. But those are critical, I think, that you need. And I think I said the ZZ plate would make it much more agreeable than the original plate. And then if you'll stick around, I'll show you where and how to put the Teflon tape in here to bring it to its full potential, at least. But to finish it up, at least here for this part of it, we'll do comparisons, and we'll do measurements and weights. Real quick here, we'll just get the weights and measurements out of the way. So just a little over 59 grams. And 45 millimeters tall, 20 millimeters wide, and about between 11 and 12 millimeters thick. So comparison wise, I've already had this out. I'll bring this out again, the 01 EDC, the new mechanical slider. It is chunky. Okay, another Metal Toys DZ product, the Top D slider. Those are about the same thickness. Another mechanical that I don't think we appreciated it at the time, the CP5. This is a little bit more in line with these make a good match. They're both about the same thickness. They're both about the same height. This is, of course, a little bit narrower. About the same weight. Look at all that travel. This is one, if you're into the mechanical thing and you don't have a CP5 yet, you really should find one. So finally, the one we always go back to, the Mackie CP3. Yeah, CP3. Whoops. Turn it. Whoop. So it's about the same thickness, about the same height, about not a little bit wider, of course. But yeah, if I can get closer here, maybe you can hear it just a little bit better. If we try to count these once, well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I believe it's 8. 8 clicks in one direction, so 16 total travel. Yeah, I took this with me to a little family get-together this week, and you know, normally I get stressed under those things. I don't like to be at them in general. I don't like to be in crowds and stuff. And this was something I could keep in my hand. It didn't make a lot of noise at all, you can tell. It also didn't attract a lot of attention because there's not a lot of travel and there's not much to it. Yeah, again, I don't think I would have appreciated this the way I do now a while back. This paved the way for me wanting to get this fixed again, and I'm quite happy with it now. So yeah, I think if you make those design choices there, you know, the ZZ plate and the tape, I think you'll be in good shape. And I think it's something worth taking a second look at. And now we will take it apart. Okay, to take it apart, you'll need a Torx T8, I believe. Could be a T7 or T9. I think T8 is right. Mine's a little bit worn down. I sort of stripped it. That's one of the reasons that that this is still together. I had trouble getting it apart. But what you need to do is remove these 2 screws first. And you don't have to worry about everything flying across the room with this one. The springs are not under that much tension. But now that it's taken apart, all you're really doing is taking off this cover plate. So you're really not even getting to the springs yet. So that comes right off. Put that off to the side. Now we have 2 screws here. Now you can still apply a little bit of pressure here and try to keep things in one place, because now that these 2 screws are out, now everything can come apart. There's a little bit of springy pressure here, you can see, but not a lot. I'm just going to see if I could dump that off. Good, it came right off. These screws are a different size. These screws are a different size than those screws, so you know, do not get them mixed up. You'll find out pretty quickly if you do. But now if I just lift this plate off, you'll see this is the difference. This is what they call, I believe, the ZZ plate, and possibly this is just the Z plate. But the difference is remarkable, and I do not care for this. So yeah, that's what the balls ride on when this goes back and forth. This piece here is merely an anchor piece that stays in the middle, then rides this inside track. That's what keeps this going in both directions and limits its travel. Like I said, I now have, these look like the regular steel balls. I thought that I had the silicone nitride balls in here. It's a little hard to tell for me under this light. This light is pretty bright. But here are the brass caps. I could just dump them all out. There we go. These, I think, are critical to a good functioning haptic. At least a haptic that uses ball and springs. I'd like to see more and more designers use these. If they're not going to use ball plungers, which I think are ideal, I'd rather see ball plungers used than ball and springs and caps. But if you're going to use ball and springs, then why not include some of these nice little brass caps? Because I think they make all the difference in the world. And then they didn't come out on their own here, but there's 4 tiny little springs that just drop into these blind holes. Oh, here it is. I got out of order. And looks like I'm number 510. But you can see here where I put the tape. It's not very much. It's just enough to, because that's what happens whenever you apply pressure to the top. This is riding on the springs, but when you push down hard enough, even though there's not much of a surface area here to make contact, these parts of the rail are metal touching metal. And even now I can feel it with my bare fingers there. I can feel it sliding, gliding over those two pieces of Teflon tape. There's no resistance at all. So that made a big difference. That could be a big plus for you on this if you make that change. Okay, for sake of demonstration, I'm going to have to change it back later, but I'm going to go ahead and put this back together with what I believe they call the Z plate as opposed to the ZZ plate, just so that I can show you the big difference in how it works. But you want to just drop these springs back in here. A pair of tweezers is always helpful. These are cylindrical springs. These are not conical springs like we talked about the other day. These are the same diameter on both sides. At least those are the springs that came with this model when I first bought it, and that was a good while ago. Then we'll take little brass caps and put them on top of the springs. Oops. Okay, and then put the balls on top of the caps. And you can sort of ensure that they're going to drop down in there without any interference. Give them each a push. Yep, everything feels good to me. So, again, instead of the nice rippled ZZ plate, we're going to put on what I would think of, I think it's the 1.5 click Z plate. So I'm just going to lay that on top of here. Let that go. I can drop this little, drop this little piece in here. Oops. And then get it over the middle. And then take these screws here. Now it helps to push down a little bit here. Push down a little bit. Get your bit on that screw. Again, turn it counterclockwise to hear that click. Then it's safe to turn clockwise. And then just snug these down. I will not know yet how long they're going to stay, if they're going to shake loose or not. If they come loose, I can add some Loctite to it later. But now, we can just put this cover plate back on. I'll go ahead and finish the job here. Let's get the full effect. Whoops. Okay, let's see if I can just get that on there without the tweezers. Yes. Okay. So, here we have with the regular Z plate in, which is only 1.5 clicks. You know, that's just not enough for me. And I think the fact that it's 1.5, that 1.5, and the only reason it's a half, I talked about this in the first video about the sandwich version, that half click is to give you enough clearance to get access to this screw. So there's your half click. And that's one of the most frustrating things in the world, 1.5 clicks. That's just not enough for me. So again, ZZ plate to the rescue, Teflon tape to the rescue. And if I ever come back and do an update on this, I don't know if I mentioned it before, but I would have to buy new hardware, new springs, brass caps, and give this another shot. And I would also have to buy another ZZ plate, because I would want 2 of those, as opposed to how I had it set up before, where it was the Z plate on each side, which this is now just the Z plate. I don't know if you're satisfied with 1.5 clicks in both directions. So, total travel, the travel distance is still the same as when you use the ZZ plate. It's still the same travel distance, but because of the small divots, you actually feel like you've done some travel. This is, I don't know, distance traveled in distance measured in clicks, 1.5 just doesn't cut it for me, I'm afraid. So that's what I have to say about that. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Thanks for watching, and